In 2020, Malawi became the third country in Africa developing a national ecosystem assessment with technical support from the United Nations Environment Programme World Conservation Monitoring Center, UNEP-WCMC, in partnership with the United Nations Educational, Cultural and Scientific Organization, UNESCO, and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, under the Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services Network, BASENET. The Commission signified Malawi's resolve to take a further step towards accounting for nature and its contributions to people, and to create awareness of the national ecosystem assessment process and identify key focus areas with the involvement of all stakeholders. The Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Vwaza, and the Department of Environmental Affairs are spearheading all the activities in the National Ecosystem Assessment process at the local level. Alice Kamwamba is the coordinator for Indigenous and Local Knowledge and also the project officer for National Ecosystem Assessment from Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Vwaza.
This assessment is entirely relying on stakeholders. So we have stakeholders from different departments, government departments, NGOs, and also academia. We have stakeholders from Zuni, Vwaza. We also have stakeholders from University of Malawi and also MAST. So we prioritized 3 thematic areas in this assessment: the aquatic thematic area, and terrestrial ecosystems, and also wetlands ecosystems. Apart from that, it was actually recommended that it would be very key to integrate indigenous and local knowledge in the assessment. So all these chapters are integrated by indigenous and local knowledge. But we also have the key stakeholders, which are the local communities, who are actually providing information on indigenous and local knowledge.
This SMART stakeholder assessment is focusing on the 8 districts found in all the 3 regions of Malawi, namely Lilongwe, Salima, Rumpi, Mzimba, Nkarabe, Sanje, Mulanje, and Zomba.
The objective of this assessment is to ensure that policies in Malawi related to ecosystem and biodiversity conservation are informed by science and indigenous and local knowledge. So basically, we don't have data on indigenous and local knowledge, but we are able to find data, secondary data, from reports and other assessments on scientific information. But on indigenous and local knowledge, we don't have. That's why we are now starting from the scratch, interacting with the local communities from different districts, the districts that were prioritized, to collect this data and synthesize it and see how we can integrate it in the assessment in the thematic chapters that I've mentioned. So we also have our technical working groups that are working on these thematic chapters, but we have another technical working group which has the experts from indigenous and local knowledge, integrating indigenous and local knowledge across all the 3 thematic areas.
In order to achieve these objectives, Vwaza, in collaboration with UNEP, WCMC and UNESCO, organized a 2-day capacity building workshop for assessment authors and experts to effectively incorporate diverse knowledge systems in the National Ecosystem Assessment for an evidence-based policy making. One of the international facilitators, Noor, Program Officer for UN Environmental Programme World Conservation Monitoring Center, highlights the importance of the workshop and his involvement.
The authors have come today from all over Malawi and from lots of different academic backgrounds and technical backgrounds to come and to continue working on Malawi's National Ecosystem Assessment. So one of the main aims is that our colleagues have come here to continue writing the assessment together. And we have come here to Malawi from Cambridge to continue learning from our colleagues in Malawi as as they are writing the assessment, and to also deliver some support on some things that they requested support on to help them with the assessment process.
Recognizing that incorporating indigenous and local knowledge in NEA will promote equity and inclusivity, the team traveled to the northern part of Malawi, Rumpi and Mzimba districts, where we have Vwaza Wildlife Game Reserve that houses Lake Kazuni. The team engaged 2 communities in the data collection in regards to the conservation of the Vwaza and its impact to its communities. Here, a number of activities have been taking place since time immemorial, fishing and hunting being some of the common ones. Above all, the Vwaza Game Reserve has been the source of different types of herbs and medicines used by traditional healers from the 2 communities. Sandengwira is one of the elders here. He narrates the history of the Vwaza Game Reserve and its impact to the people.
Vwaza ikalekalero mene tinali kukhalira ma 50s makolo athu anali kukhala bwinobwino chovuta chilichonse kunalibe sidya ndi sidya ilo la nyanja ndi sidya lino kunali anthu koma pakuti tinali wochepa zinthu zinali kuyenda bwinobwino ngakhale nyama tinali kudya free nsomba munsinje umu nazonso tinali kudya free koma from the time panali pa 8 September 1968 pamene Kamuzu president woyamba Malawi muno atabwera ku Kazuni kuno pamene analamula kuti sopano malo amene awa akhale game reserve tinachitenga ngati kapena chango yankhulidwa ndi government koma anthu kusidya uko inali umozi wokhala ndi makolo anga kusidya uko tinachitenga kukhala from 1968 kuzafika 1976 pamene tinalamulidwa kuti kumene kujati chokeko koma 1977 Vwaza it was gazetted kuti ndi game reserve 78 pamene inakhazikidwa kuti ndi wildlife sopano ndithu yakhazikika malamulo koma tikukhala pa chibale chathu inde tikugwira ntchito lumozi inde koma tinali kuopsezedwa kwambiri pakuti tinazolowera kutenga kuzambiri umene tinazolowera pa nyanja apa kapena umene ife tinali kusidya sitabwera kuno ndiye kuti zotenga kuzambiri tinali obisika ndiyo anali kuti opsha ndiyo kuti chibale chathu si chinali kuyenda bwino yayi chifukwa zambiri anali kutikaniza.
Men, women and youth agrees with Ngwira and are also engaging themselves in environmental conservation activities, mainly to maintain and protect the supplies within the reserve.
Pakale paja timangolo wako ndipo timakatenga masuka mopanda chilichonse koma pano pamene kwasinthira kuli waya kuli chani timatenga permit tikamalowa kunkhalango kuja kukazula mauzu kukatenga mankhwala timatenga permit opanda permit ndi achama kapezekana ndi ngozi mkati muja akakumana ndi magaidi konkuja amagwira koma panopo aizidi bwino pakale paja anthu amakafera komweko kokatenga mankhwalako sinanga anali osatetezeka koma panopo zili bwino kuti akumatiteteza kumatipasa maperimiti timapitanso ndi gaidi mozi wafuti kuti akatiperekeze kumalo kuja tikatengeko zimene tikufuna kaya ndi mauzi kaya ndi mitengo kaya ndi bowa kaya ndi nsomba zimakhala bwino kwambiri apapa ndikungolimbikisana kuti mitengo ija asamayidule chifukwa mitengo ija njofunika kwambiri.
Ife timakambirana nazo kuzana ndi Vwaza timakambirana kuti tizisamalira chilengedwe komanso ngati ife achinyamata timatengapo gawo poti tikapeza ngati pamalo pake ngati waya waonongeka timakapereka malipoti kuti pakuti sipali bwino paonongeka ndiye amazabwera kumakozapo pakuti pagwa mtengo timakapereka malipoti kuti azati konze mtengo chamene wako.
Ukuku kuli nsomba tikapha nsomba kuti magulisa kulipirira na school fees kenako timagulako sopo ngati chakudya chavuta ndithu pa nsomba magulisa nsomba nikagula chakudya ndiyo tikuli phindu kuliso zipaso zambiri timatengako kuli gumbwa anthu amatenga gumbwa uja kusoka mphasa kumakagulisa kunsika kuli mabango timakalukira zitete
timapita kukatenga mapermission yomwe amatipasa alangizi athu aku game reserve tikatenga umene kuja timapita umene kuja ndi chilolezo kupanda chilolezo sungapite wekha ukatenga china chilichonse nthawi yakumambuyoko kunalibe chilolezo nde anthu amangolowa zinthu zambiri ku game reserve zimaonongeka ngati chilengedwe makamaka akapita umene kuja kuti mwina mwaka ukapha nsomba amapezeka kuti ena ukapha ndi nyama zomwe komanso amapezeka kuti mitengo ijamatani amadula nde chilengedwe chambiri chimaonongeka ngati ku game reserve ngati fair ya Chinyamata timapanga ma awareness campaign kumauza anthu m'mizi kumaonena kuti ku game reserve sikufunika kuti munthu azipita mmene kuja kumakadula mitengo kapena kumapita opanda chilolezo timapitanso timapanga nthawi yoti mwina mwake mwezi wa July kandi August mwezi uno wa August ma youth club onse tikapezane ku game kuti tikalambulire mawaya takhala tikuwauza anthu ambiri komanso alangizi athu ku NRC omwe ali aku game nawonso akhala akulangizaso kwambiri nde anthu ambiri aona kuti zinthu zimenezi nzofunikira kwambiri kuthandizira kumuzi kwathu kuno mofa kuti akakhala kuti akuotcha makala umene kuja ku mitengo ikamata nde kuti nyama zambiri zizituluka kumabwera kuno kumuzi kuzaononga zinthu.
kale pene papalapala ise nga umotikawira nga kuti tichaliko wana tikachisanga chaphindu kwa ise ni vipaso unkhani ya mankhwala ise apa tikakuti tichaliko wana pa nyengo iye tikacha ma 12 years tikapanga ngakuti para ise tikwiza kuno nyengo zinyake panji mnyake wajikhuwala mnthu wa bapapa katiphaliranga mnkhwala kuti para mnyinu wajikhuwala mnthu wa munkhwala ni uwu wakatilongolanga mnkhwala wa mjoyi pati chikhundi nyake tikuti mjoyi mjoyi uwo tikatolanga kwali tikuta kusukuru tikatolanga tikaupikinyanga pikinye mbwetu majitu wake tula mtu tikampenyezanga papi tikampenyezanga pa chironda pene pala mbwene kuti mjoyi hapa tampenyeza pa chironda pala ukakolanga ngati ni plaster ukakolanga nju mbwe pala wakola para uza mgogoka mjoyi ura ndichonda nacho tavi chondi chapoa mwisi wakati phalira hapa papi.
This place is called a hide inside the Vwaza Game Reserve, a place where animals come following the fruits from these trees and later go for a drink. Fresh animal tracks can be seen all over the place, a sign of life. Elephants, antelopes, and many other animals gather here for lunch and a drink.
Mitengo ima tusa zipaso. Ndiye zipaso zija zimagwa basi. Ndiye nyama zimabwera kuzadi ya zipaso zija. Ndiye nkati somo mwemu muli chile lina yake timalicha dopoto. Limene nyama zimakonda kwambiri kudya. Ndiye zikamachoka uko zimafikira pano. Zidye dopoto uja. Zidye mazipaso za mitengo imene yagwa pasipa ndiye ikamadya zija zikachoka baja zimwe mazi basi popeza kuti pati pakhale bwino mithuzi ndi mitengo imene ili apa ndiye nyama zija zimakhala chani zimakhala mitengo.
Echurukutu chandaura chaka na chaka.
According to the traditional leaders here, the declaration of the Vwaza Marsh as a protected area slightly pushed away their local preservation methods and cultural practices.
Chito zimene timagwirisa za makolo makamaka matenda akativuta kaya nchifuwa akulu amapita kumeneko kuvwazako chifukwa ni dambo la mizimu ndiko zorokere adaponda miendo yake woyamba ndiye mdauko wake wazorokere unali kumenekoko Sono matenda akativuta makanenerera kumeneko akachoka uko ndekuti anthufe timakhala bwino. Matenda amachoka chifukwa cha akulu apita kumenekoko kukayankhula ndi amzimu. Ndiye ife timapeza mtendere. Komano sopano kusowa kokanenerera mizimu. Chifukwa inali malo amzimu. Ndiko kuli mdauko wa Zorokere.
There is some areas where we were playing after something happened in the village. If people get sick, we are having time to go there and play in some of the areas. Sometimes if there is a drought, people are getting there and playing to those places and the rain comes. So there is a lot of things which is happening there through our culture things.
Vwaza Game Reserve is a gazetted area. It's under the Malawi government and it's a protected area. So ever since I was born, knowing to say Vwaza is a gazetted area, and it came maybe sometime back, maybe before I was born. So we are there following to say this is a gazetted area. It is an area where you cannot encroach anyhow. There are a lot of things inside there. Living things as well as non-living things. We have animals inside there, of which they bring in tourism. On culturally, maybe the trees and the likes, people go and fetch for herbs and the likes. So it helps, but it is a gazetted area, so you can't enter and do your things there.
One of the key aspects that will never fade away from the people of Zorokere and Kazuni is their desire to conserve the Vwaza Game Reserve using local methods, even now that there are restrictions. Joseph Karanja, BaseNet Project Officer at UNESCO, says there is a connection between culture and conservation.
Through this experience, we have found there's a very significant connection between people, their livelihood, their culture, and the Vwaza ecosystem, which include the forest, the Lake Kazuni, the marsh, and as well as their livelihoods. And maybe just to amplify, one of the main aspects that we found here among the people, they have very strong desire to conserve the Vwaza ecosystem, and they have very strong ownership of the ecosystem. I was actually quite interested to hear pre-independent period, during the colonial period, actually the people started the first initiative of conserving this area through the establishment of the Vwaza hunting controlled area, which was done in 1955. And this is an indication that people had the desire, to protect their wildlife, especially during that time, against the ivory hunting as well as sport hunting. Also, one other element that we found quite interesting here, often when you're engaging the local communities, we often see them as resource users. But through this exercise, we have seen that they're not only resource users, but also they are right holders, they are also custodian of the environment, and also they have crucial knowledge and also cultural practices that can support conservation of policies.
It is a common knowledge now that indigenous communities possess centuries of accumulated knowledge about biodiversity and ecosystem services, species, and environmental changes, as Dr. Woman Kondowe, a senior lecturer with Mzuzu University and a lead author for Indigenous and Local Knowledge in this assessment, explains.
We have learned a lot of histories behind these two sites, but also have learned a lot about the local knowledge that people use. And you see the wetland that is here It is connecting a number of biodiversity. We have seen that there's aquatic life in Vwaza. There's also a lot of trees, natural trees, which is a component of terrestrial. So you can see, studying Vwaza only, you are able to connect the aquatic resources that are found in the marsh, the fish, different types of fish. We have also seen the different types of trees, and even the game itself, the wildlife, the animals that they live here. So all of them, they are bringing together the natural sources that we are looking for. And each one of them has a special connection to the people's lives. And just to mention one specific area, we have learned about the graveyard, the Mzuzuzu graveyard that connects people here with the ancestral site. When they experience like drought, they go there to worship the ancestors for rainfall. But also even there's an outbreak of diseases, people go to the Mzuzu graveyard to worship to the ancestors. So there's a lot here. And even we've also learned about how different cultural practices that they use here. For example, when they harvest in the farms, the post-rain harvest in the farms, when they're about to be harvested, you can't just eat. You have to take part of the yield to the chief. So the chief has to pray for them, and then they have to inaugurate them so that everyone now can start eating. Those practices are very rich, and they connect well with the people in the environment around Vwaza.
Principal Environmental Officer in the Ministry of Natural Resources and Climate Change, Dr. Lilian Chimpepo, says the data collected in the northern part of Malawi will assist policymakers in gaining access to diverse perspectives, enabling them to be more informed, culturally sensitive, and being effective in decision-making in ecosystem management and conservation.
We are going to come up with a technical report as well as summary for policymakers. So summary for policymakers will comprise key messages that government will require to take action, especially what we are going to find. For example, I would say at the moment we can just say there is deforestation is happening at a high rate, but we don't have evidence in terms of the data. So this assessment will come up with the evidence in form of data showing the status at the moment and also the trends over the years. We are using data for 50 years. At the moment we are in 2024, which means we are going to synthesize information and data from 1974 to date. So this will show us the trends in biodiversity loss, or even how effective the measure that we have been implementing as government to address biodiversity loss. And we will be able to recommend to say these initiatives are working and which are not working, or say these are not working and they are not worth proceeding with them. So we'll make such recommendation, and also we'll bring up some scenarios looking at the measures and policies that we are implementing. If we continue the way we are doing, how will the future hold? How will the future be like? So those are the things that will inform policy change in the country.